She put her mind to her dream, and her dream was ready.
Well, y'all come on, because we're going to have a real big time.
Paula Deen is the South. The food, the manners, the charm, even the story, which begins in classic Southern style in a rustic Georgia town unmistakably pronounced Albany.
We had a restaurant and a lodge, and so her mother and her grandmother, more especially her grandmother, and they were always in the kitchen.
Our Granny Paul lived just outside of town in Lee County, and she had a garden, and Granny Paul taught my mom how to cook, and it's come now to us.
She got her looks from her mama, but her personality came straight from her daddy, a fun-loving fella who taught her lessons bigger than what could be put in a school book.
I have literally flown by the seat of my pants since day one. I just have a 12th grade education, barely got out of school. I was very social.
She had that great sense of humor. She could laugh at herself. She could fail and pick up herself and go again.
Now, who's oldest?
Mama is the oldest, actually, out of the three of us.
She married and had two boys, Jamie and Bobby, who were just as Albany as she was.
Just South Georgia boys, you know, barefooted and 1 foot in trouble most of the time.
Paula lost both of her parents when she was barely out of her teens, and she withdrew into a small world of cooking and her boy.
You know, Mom battled through agoraphobia, but to a 12-year-old, I didn't know that. Mom just stayed home, you know, and in hindsight, learned how to be a great cook.
Tell me everything you know about rocks.
They're heavy and they're hard.
In '87, she came to Savannah, a move that was not popular in all quarters. Bobby was in his senior year of high school, and Jamie had begun an illustrious college career.
We may as well have moved to Beijing. I didn't know where Savannah was. Had never been here. It was a traumatic experience.
I went to Valdosta State College, but I had to work to pay for school. So it was funny, I was there for 3 years, and I worked and I took 2 classes. And one of them was speech, and you could tell that didn't take. And the other one, now listen, I have worked hard and scraped and saved money, and so I decided to take a geology class. So I took the study of rocks.
It was time to come home. Mama had divorced and there were bills to pay, and food, after all, was in their DNA. And thus was born the Bag Lady.
I said, okay, I'll come home, and just figured that it'd be a short-term thing. Mom had done insurance. I'd seen her take ceramics classes. She worked at the bank. She'd done a lot of things, and I thought, you know, this is a 3-month thing. We started in June. I'll be back at school in the fall.
I had $200 to start my little business with, and I had these 2 precious, sweet sons. I pimped them out on the streets with my food.
We were at the house for a year, and the city found out that we were operating illegal. So we had to go out, and we moved into
Legal?
Yeah, we can talk about it now. The statutes of limitations have passed, I'm sure. We went to the Best Western motel on the south side.
The folks lined up every day for chicken and hoe cakes on West Congress Street don't know that their lunch started cooking over on Eisenhower about 20 years ago, when Paula was joined in the kitchen by Dora Charles.
We used to rub butts.
Paula poured herself into making the restaurant go with a single-mindedness that was a defining moment in her life.
I'd never seen anybody before or since work that hard and be so dedicated.
So I was willing to do whatever it took to be successful. And if that was a 20-hour day, so be it. That's what I was gonna do. And was in the Best Western for 5 of the longest, hardest years of my life. In fact, I really felt like I wouldn't physically live to be able to tell my story.
We bust our tail, and we did it. And it worked out. It was hard. I like to say it's hard, but it's fair. Nothing great come easy.
Louisiana.
Florida. Oklahoma City.
Kentucky. Illinois. We're all from Chess.
Nothing great comes easy, and a quick survey of folks waiting in line at the Lady & Sons speaks to the greatness that was achieved when Paula rode the momentum of the Best Western restaurant into downtown Savannah, where Albany's traveling roadshow landed in 1996.
She said, a happy kitchen and you get happy food.
Fried chicken in the house.
And then things started breaking Paula's way.
Jerry Shriver from USA Today came in and named us the most memorable meal of the year, our little humble buffet. And we beat out Paris, we beat out Chicago, New York. And I remember that morning that it came out, I was stunned. And I just stood around and I just cried all day long.
And action. If a single article in USA was big, a nationally syndicated cooking show was enormous, and the Lady and Sons began to ripple out into the wider community.
Savannah experiences almost 7 million tourists a year, and we can pretty much count that 1 in 7 visits the Lady and Sons restaurant. It has actually become the city's #1 tourist attraction.
But here's what Aunt Peggy says about all that success.
And I realized that when she found Michael, that her life was complete.
And I thought, ooh, he scares me, because he had kind of long, shaggy hair and his beard was shaggy and unkempt.
Her dogs found their way into Michael's yard, is how she met him, and then they found their way again, which occasioned the interview.
The first question I asked is, are you married? And he said no, and I said, do you have any children? He said, yes, I have 2, and I have custody of them. I said, oh, now that's a good man that has custody of his children. And then the third and real important question I asked was, do you have a job?
They were married at Bethesda in a small private ceremony, but receptions with a raucous crowd of hundreds downtown.
It was incredible. Matter of fact, I told Paul, I said, my next wedding, I'm not having the reception at Lady and Sons. She said, you can pretty much count on that.
In 2000, Uncle Bubba joined the Paula Express, pitching in downtown until one day the phone rang, and Uncle Bubba's restaurant was born.
Paula said, hell yeah, we're interested in it, talk to Bubba.
As the empire grew, so did its generosity, which centered naturally on food and boys.
For our boys to be able to relate to a role model like that who has overcome some difficulties in life, they need to see that.
Here in Savannah, Georgia, the food that she's given us has fed about over 100,000 people.
But more important than the business and the charity is the authentic Southernness that the Lady and her Sons have brought to downtown Savannah.
And then when people ask me about it, I tell them, is she really, I mean, they have this expression, is she really like she is on the set? And I'm like, yes, she is. She's like that. Just like you see her, that's how she is.
She's everybody's quintessential grandmother. She reminds me of my grandmother if she was an old Southern white woman.
You can't create, you can't buy, you can't make that type of a spirit. You have to be born with it.
I hope that I leave them hope. I hope I give them hope. I've experienced hopelessness. It's terrible. I want for women to look at me and say, well, if she could, I can.
Paula Deen is a laureate in the Savannah Business Hall of Fame.